Thanks for joining me today, and we're going to get right into the Samhain Feast. But first, I want to take a moment to just talk about what Samhain means to me and my family. So Samhain is the time of year where we all gather around the feast and we reflect on everything that's happened in the coming year, and we ask for good tidings and good blessings in the year to come. We also invite our departed ancestors to dine with us spiritually. We always leave a place setting for them to come and join us, and in hopes that they give us good dreams or good tidings about the year to come. So it's really important that the feast goes along with that so that we get that overall blessing through the entire family, both those who are here with us and those who have moved on. So I hope you join us today for today's special recipes. First recipe coming up is going to be my mulled cider. Okay, so mulled cider first up. First thing we're going to do is we're going to take our cauldron and we're going to put our cider right in there. I'm going to put in the whole gallon. Next, I've got some Manila tangerines. I'm going to be slicing these into thick slices. And I have a Granny Smith apple and a Honeycrisp apple. Both of these represent the harvest of the following year to me and my family. They can mean different things to anybody. It doesn't really matter. These I am going to core, and then I'm also going to slice these into thick rings. Now, I did buy these organic. Now, if you chose not to core your apples, you may even have a 5-pointed star of seeds if you get lucky. Orange slices I'm going to toss right in. And with some of the apple slices, I'm going to stud them with cloves. It's much easier to punch the cloves into the apples than it is the sliced oranges. This will make it so you don't have to strain quite as much later. And it looks pretty. I've got these ends of the oranges that aren't quite so pretty. I'm just going to squeeze them right in there. Next, whole cinnamon sticks. I'm going to put 2 whole sticks in here. Make sure you're buying food grade cinnamon. That's really important. You don't want to buy cinnamon from a hobby store that is intended for potpourri use and could be poisonous or hazardous to your health. Some whole allspice, just a few, like a little pinchful. Green cardamon. I like to press these with the side of a really sturdy knife. Press so that the pod opens up and toss them in. This will add a really nice warming spiciness to the cider. Next, I'm going to throw in 1 whole bay leaf for prosperity. Yeah, I know what you're thinking. Bay leaves is usually for savory dishes, but in cider, it really does add a nice little touch. You won't taste it that much. Just remember to remove the bay leaf at the end because bay leaves are, of course, poison when you consume them. And next, I'm going to put in 2 whole star anise. Final 2 ingredients, 1/4 cup of honey, you could also use brown sugar, and then 1/2 cup of whatever brandy you choose. I'm going with a peach one this year. It's got a very light peach scent. This is from E&J. Now all I'm going to do is I'm going to take this over to the stove on very, very low heat and simmer low and slow for about 8 hours. Now I do keep the lid on mine for a majority of the time, but don't forget to stir it occasionally. You want to make sure you are incorporating all the spices. You keep things moving around nice and gentle. So while that's brewing, I'm going to be making our dessert course. So I decided to go simple this year. All I'm doing is I'm making a Blondie recipe, basically, with some tart fruit. I'm going to be using blueberries in this recipe, but I normally would use cranberries. The Blondie recipe is pretty simple. And then when that comes out, it's going to be beautiful, I promise. So we'll get started on the next. First thing we need to do, melt the butter. I'm just going to microwave that for about 30 seconds. If it's not all the way melted, give it a stir and pop it in for 30 seconds more. While that's melting, we're going to beat our eggs and our sugar. 2 eggs, room temp, with 1.5 cups of sugar. And we're going to beat that for about 2 minutes. You want your batter to be light and fluffy. Next, we're going to beat in our melted butter. This is 3/4 cup melted butter. I'm actually going to switch it up. I'm actually going to use orange extract this time. So 1 teaspoon, maybe a splash of rum extract too. And then, because I also want to go a little extra, I'm going to be putting a sprinkle of nutmeg in here. And this will be to promote healthy dreams or prophetic dreams. So about a 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg. I can smell that was the right choice. Next, we have to add our flour. I'm adding 1.5 cup of flour. I'm not going to use the mixer. Make sure you scrape the bottom of the bowl to get everything incorporated. Your dough should be pretty stringy. That's perfect. Good consistency. And next, we're just going to fold in our berries. 2 cups fresh washed blueberries. And I'm going to fold that in really gently. And now I'm just going to put them into a 7 by 9 inch pan. You do not have to butter this pan. Just pour it right in. Spread it out evenly. And now we're going to pop this in a 350-degree oven for 1 hour. All right, so we've got our cider being mulled. We've got our baked good in the oven. Next, we're going to focus on the stuffing that I'm going to be making to fill my pork tenderloin. So I'm doing a stuffed pork tenderloin filled with a wild rice stuffing recipe. And we can make that rice ahead of time, just making the meal prep for the day of much, much easier. So this recipe is a little bit tricky. Wild rice is one of those rices that is a little bit harder to cook, but I promise you there's a couple ingredients in here that's going to really make it stand out and sing. It's becomes one of Christoph's favorite meals in this house, and we really do like all the textures and flavors that this wild rice stuffing brings to the table. Really beautiful wild rice blend. We're going to need 1.5 cups of this. All right, so 1.5 cups of rice. 2 1/4 cups of chicken stock. Full bay leaf once again for prosperity. A sprinkling of salt and a dash of pepper. So we're going to put this on the stove, bring it to a boil before we put our lid on. All right, so while the rice is simmering, I'm going to be preparing my vegetables and my bacon mix to get folded into the rice once the rice is finished cooking. So I've got 2 stalks of celery, 1 onion, and 1 package of washed mushrooms. I'm just going to dice those up real quick and set them aside, and then get to work on frying my bacon.
All right, I'm going to fry 4 pieces of bacon today. Let's make it 6. Everyone loves bacon. So I'm going to fry up 6 pieces of bacon before adding in 2 tablespoons of butter to saute my vegetables in to get them all cooked down. Our blondies have just come out of the oven. You can tell that they're done when the toothpick inserted in the center comes out clean. Look at the nice golden brown color we got all across the crust. You have to set these aside for 5 minutes to cool before you can cut them. On the cutting board in front of me, you can see I have some minced garlic and some fresh sage from out in the herb garden. We're going to be adding those to the sauteed vegetables once the water from the mushroom cooks out and the mushrooms start to brown a little bit. Then you can add the fresh herbs, saute it up, and just cook it for another minute or 2. Okay, now it's time to add the sage and garlic. And now I'm going to chop up the bacon that I had set aside cooling into nice even-sized pieces. Alright, the mushrooms have finally cooked down and started to brown, so now it's time to add our other two ingredients to the sauteing vegetables. I'm going to add a half cup of dried cranberries and the chopped up bacon. We're going to let that cook for 1 minute to envelop flavors before we add our final secret ingredient. Our rice has been cooking for about 45 minutes now, and now it's time to add it into the sauteed vegetables. And now for that secret ingredient, 1/4 cup Parmesan cheese. You just want to mix everything up really, really well. Make sure it gets all mixed together. Everything's going to come together and it's got a really, really great flavor. And then you just want to set it aside to cool until you can stuff your pork tenderloin. I mean, look how delicious that looks.
Okay, so I've strained the cider and put it back in the jug and into the fridge. So now I'm going to be using the solid apple parts, and I'm going to be mashing them through a fine sieve strainer to make kind of like an apple butter that I'm going to coat my pork tenderloin with before wrapping it in bacon. So yeah, these parts are really, really soft. So you just mush them with a rubber spatula through a fine sieve. And it kind of makes this like apple butter. All right, it's looking pretty good. I'm actually going to pass it through the sieve one more time without pressing. This will allow a lot of the liquid to fall out and then give us a thicker, more like applesauce paste. I'm still going to reduce that on the stove, but it'll take less time. And now this can get poured right back into our cider jug, and this can get reduced on the stove. While that's reducing, let's start working on our tenderloin. Okay, so we want to actually make this like a really, really thin roll. So I'm kind of use this fat line as a guideline for my first cut. I'm just going to take the knife and I'm going to let the knife do the work. I'm going to go very, very slow. Right now I'm working along the outside edge of the first part of the tenderloin. When you get to about there, you want to turn your tenderloin so your piece that you've just cut is flat up and open. And now you want to start cutting down along this edge here. You kind of got to feel it out. All right, so you can see my piece is a little thick over here. That's okay. We're going to be pounding it flatter. And I'm just going to keep going, following that edge. As best I can. Until I have something that resembles kind of a rectangle. And now we're going to tenderize. So now I have a very flat expanse of pork tenderloin that I can stuff. All right, so I've got my tenderloin, I've got my wild rice, and I've got some bacon and that apple butter I made earlier. I think the easiest way for me to do this is going to be for me to just do it in the pan that I'm going to be cooking in it. This way anything that falls out is going to be directly down in there. I want a good healthy coating of the wild rice. Nice big layer. Probably should have laid the bacon in first. So I've got my pork tenderloin rolled halfway. I'm just now sticking the slices of bacon just under the end. All right, and now I'm going to finish rolling it over the rice, like so. And now I'm going to take that bacon and it's going to wrap all the way across. It's going to kind of help everything hold its shape, stay together. Oh my gosh, this is going to be so delicious, you guys. All right, so that is what our pork tenderloin looks like, wrapped in bacon, stuffed with wild rice. Now I'm going to take that apple butter and I'm going to brush it lightly over top so you kind of get like an apple smoked bacon. Look how beautiful that looks. And now it's just ready to cook. So I'm going to be baking this at 350 for 45 minutes to an hour, depending on doneness. I will have to slice into it to see if it's done and make sure that everything's cooked thoroughly. As you can see, I still have plenty of wild rice left over for a side dish. Okay, cider's mulled, tenderloins in the oven roasting. Our dessert is cooled and ready to go. Our rice stuffing has already been made and stuffed. We now need to focus on our side dish. So I'm going to be making an orange and honey spiced glazed carrots. Probably the simplest recipe of tonight's feast, but still a joy to have. And I even shortcut this and make this year round. So not just for Samhain, but all year round. Baby carrots, wash them, drain them, and put them into a medium-sized saucepan. Into there, you're going to add a tablespoon of butter, a teaspoon of salt, a little squeeze, like half an orange. You want the orange juice to cook with the carrots and infuse them with some flavor. Reserve the other half of the orange for later. Now we're just going to set this on the boil till they're tender.
Okay, while the carrots are cooking, we're going to make our sauce in the side bowl here. You're going to want a spoonful of butter or margarine. You're going to want to add a good sprinkling of salt, a dash of ground ginger, dash of allspice, dash of ground cardamom, light pinch of ground cloves, dash of nutmeg, and a dash of cinnamon. The other half of the orange, just squeeze it right in there. And we're also going to add a spoonful of orange marmalade. And our final ingredient is just a little bit of honey, just to make it sweeter. Just want to stir everything all together nice and slow. The butter isn't really going to melt, it's going to be kind of clumpy, but it'll melt once you add the hot carrots to the mix, so don't worry about it. It will take care of itself later.
All right, our carrots are cooked and it's time to add them to the sauce that we made.
Obviously, you want to strain them first. And now you just want to stir it all up. Okay, so our tenderloin is about to come out of the oven right now. I'm going to try and move it to the cutting board so I can slice it and put it on the platter. Welcome to the Samhain Feast. I had so much fun making all these for you today, from the roast pork tenderloin with wild rice stuffing, green beans with garlic and parmesan, glazed honey orange carrots, witch's fingers cookies I have in another video, mulled cider, and last but not least, the cranberry or blueberry blondies. Okay, before you sit down to enjoy your Samhain feast, remember to ask your house spirits to allow your ancestors in so that you can receive their prophetic wishes for the following years and receive their dreams. Remember, your house spirit is there to keep you safe, so if you don't ask them to allow your ancestors in, they won't come and visit you. I hope you really liked today's episode. Give us a big thumbs up if you really like what you saw. Don't forget to leave a comment down below if you'd like to see other Sabbath meals that I would create for my family. Make sure you subscribe so you never miss an episode of all the fun going on here in the lab. Be like the bats in the belfry and hit that bell so you get notified every time we make an episode. Thanks for joining me, and we'll see you in the next time in the lab.